Let's look at basic graphing on a TI-92 calculator. The first one we'll take a look at is y is equal to x. And I'm definitely not an expert on TI-92. I know enough to fumble around and get around in it. So it might be easier ways to do this. So if you're an expert on TI-92 and you think, boy, he's telling the hard way to do that, it could be. The calculator mainly used in the classroom is either a TI-84 or a TI-Inspire. But I do have students come in with these oddball calculators every once in a while. Okay, you see above your Q, W, E, R, T, and Y in green? Some different items. We want to go into the Y equals. So I'll do this diamond, if that's what it is, W to access the Y equals. Now it's on Y1. I can press clear to clear out wherever's not in line. Now if I press my X key, which is right here, and then press enter, it'll store that one off. And now to graph it, I'll do diamond R, and that'll give us our graph. Okay, now let's say you don't get that. It looks different for some reason. You see up here it says zoom is F2. If I press F2, it'll pop down with this, and we want to choose the zoom standard. So I'm going to choose 6. Now that'll set your zoom back to your standard viewing window from -10 to +10 on the x-axis, -10 to +10 on the y-axis. That's probably the main thing that'll go wrong on TI-92, besides syntax errors, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Let's take a look at our second one. We're going to take a look at y is equal to x squared. And we're going to see that we can actually use this to graph y is equal to x to the third, y is equal to x to the fourth, y is equal to x to the fifth, whatever you might be dealing with. Now I can freely go back and forth between the y equals and the graph, or I can exit out with the home there. So I do diamond Q, and that'll X me out where I can add numbers or whatever. Anyway, I'll go back to y equals, so I do diamond W. I'm going to up arrow to put my flashing cursor on Y1. I'll press clear to clear out wherever's not in line. And then I'll press my X key. And how you do any power in your calculator is with the caret. So caret's right over here. So do caret, and then I'll put in 2, and press enter to save that. You see the x squared there. Now if I go to graph, I'll do diamond R. You'll get your parabola. Now let's look at y is equal to x to the third, just to show that it works for any number, whether it's 4, 5, or whatever. Come back here, I'm going to do diamond W. Go back to y equals. I'll press my up arrow, put my flashing cursor on, or put my cursor on Y1. Now press my clear. Now do my X key, then do caret, and then 3, and then enter. You see, he puts the x third there. Now do diamond R for graph, and that'll give us our x to the third graph. So that's how you handle any number. Now let's take a look at y is equal to x to the 1/2. And here I'm demonstrating how do you handle it when you get any fraction up there, 1/2, 2/3, 1/17. But even more than that, how do you graph something if you got more than a single number or a single variable in your exponent? That's the main item we're looking at here. Well, the trick to it, I should write this down first, is if you got more than a single number or a single variable in your exponent, put parentheses around the exponent. And that's how we'll type it in. So let's go back to our calculator. So I'm going to go back to my y equals. I do diamond W. Do an up arrow to Y1. I'll press my clear. And then I'll do my X key, caret. Caret is always how we do an exponent. And then I'll put a beginning parentheses. And then I'll do 1 divided by 2. So 1 divided by 2. And then I'll put in a closing parentheses. And then press enter. And then you see I got x to the 1/2. Now if I graph that, I'll do diamond R. That'll give us our x to the 1/2, which will look like that right there. Now let's do that again without putting the parentheses around it and compare the two. So I'm going to go back to my y equals. I do diamond W, do an up arrow to y1, press clear. Then I do my x, and then caret, then 1 divided by 2. Press enter. Notice we got a problem right there. Without the parentheses, it thinks I wanted x to the first power divided by 2. And if I do the graph of that, I do diamond R, you see I don't get anything close to the actual answer. So again, parentheses around your exponent if you got more than a single number, single variable. And let's take a look at the square root of x. Okay, so if I go back to my y equals, so I do diamond W, and I'm up arrow to y1, press clear. To get to the square root, you see above my multiplication symbol is a square root symbol. So I press my second button one time, and then press my multiplication, and it puts the square root, puts a beginning parentheses. So then I'll put an x, and then I'll put a closing parentheses, and then press enter. And that gives you your square root of x. Now if I graph that, I do diamond R. That'll give us that graph right there. Now I might be looking at that and thinking, well, that's the same as the other one. Well, yeah, because x to the 1/2 is the same as square root of x. Okay, let's take a look at the cube root of x. And what I'm demonstrating here is how do you handle this when you got any number in that slot right there. That's called your index. If you and this kind of depends upon what version of the operating system you have for the TI-92, but we can rewrite this. This is if I were to put a power here, this is x to the first. You can rewrite this as x to the 1/3 power. Whatever power is inside here, that's what goes up on top. And then whatever your index is, whatever number is in the slot, is what goes in your denominator. Now at this point, this is a x to a power. And we got more than a single number up there, or single variables, so we had to put parentheses around power. So when we plug that in, we'll put parentheses around the 1/3. Well, let's see that. X to 1/3. So I'll do diamond W to go to the y equals. Press my up arrow to go to y1. I press clear. Do my x key. Do my caret. Then beginning parentheses, and then 1 divided by 3. Closing parentheses. Enter. And then I'm going to do my graph. So do my diamond R. And that'll give us our graph. Which looks like that right there. Okay, now if you got a newer version of the operating system, how you can put this in there, and I went and read on this, so I haven't actually got to experience this on this version of the calculator, is you you go do your y equals, then you choose the root function, and then you put a beginning parentheses, and then you put your x key in, and then it indicated you put 3 in for like third root. I wish I could actually test that instead of just telling you about it. Where you would see the root if you had it, if I do diamond W, up arrow, press clear. If I go into the math, if I do second, and then over here above the 5 is math. If I do 5, it'll come up with this list right here. And if I come down to algebra, and then do a right arrow key, you would see root over here. Now I don't have root, so I can't show it to you, but this is where you'd find it. I'm going to press escape and escape to get that to disappear. But that's where it'd be. Okay, now let's look at some different scenarios of that, just so you see how to handle it. Obviously, the fourth root would be pretty easy, but how if I have the fourth root of x to the third? Well, how would we write this? This would be x to the 3/4 power. If there's actually a power in there, then that goes up on top. And again, whatever your index is, the number in a slot, is what goes down below. And then trick to this is if you have more than a single number, a single variable in your exponent, put parentheses around the exponent like that. If I had y is equal to the fifth root of x minus 1. Well, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, how do I handle that? And there's two terms in there. Well, what would really be there is implied parentheses to the first power. So then you'd rewrite this as y is equal to x minus 1 to the 1/5 power. Again, whatever power is right here goes up on top, and whatever number is in your slot, your index, is what goes down below. And then the trick to putting that in is we put parentheses around the exponent like that. Anyway, that's how you handle the different roots. Well, let's take a look at absolute value of x. Okay, so I'm already here. If I press clear, it'll clear out wherever's not in line. Now the absolute value, if I do second and then 5 for the math, you see numbers highlighted already. I can just press my right arrow key, and then you see there's an ABS. So if I down arrow to ABS and press enter on it, you see it puts ABS beginning parentheses, then I'll put my X key, and then I'll put a closing parentheses and press enter. And you see the absolute value of x there. Now if I do diamond R, it'll graph it. And that'd be our answer. Okay, let's look at the next one. And I don't know why I scroll clear down there. We got y is equal to x plus 2 over x minus 3. Now this is just generally how do you handle any fraction on your calculator. Well, if you have more than a single number or a single variable on top or bottom of your fraction, you have to put parentheses around it. So when you plug this in, you want to put parentheses around top, parentheses around the bottom. You do not need to do that if you got a single number up on top or a single variable on top or on the bottom. Doesn't hurt though. Other than that, we just type in as you see it. And come back over here. Okay, scroll that up a little bit so you can see it. So I go back to my y equals, so do diamond W, up arrow to y1, and press clear. And then I'll do my beginning parentheses, x plus 2, closing parentheses, divided by, beginning parentheses, x minus 3, closing parentheses, and then enter. And that's what it should look like. And let me show that again. Then come back here, press clear. I do begin, and then I'll do my beginning parentheses, x plus 2. I haven't really showed you any kind of editing features here. So x plus 2, close parentheses. Oops, what did I do? I just put a 5. Well, this right here is how you can go back and delete those. This is probably the easiest way. Is this will delete the character to the left of it. So if I go back like that, then I can put what I want. You can also use the insert and delete above it if you got something really complex and you don't want to retype a lot of it. But I'm just going to show you the backspace. Okay, then closing parentheses divided by beginning parentheses x minus 3. And then closing parentheses and enter. Okay, now graph. So do diamond R for the graph. And your graph is everything except for this vertical line. That's a flaw with the calculator. That shouldn't be there. It's not putting a vertical asymptotes on there for you. I went to TI's website and read about it. It's a flaw with the calculator. So our graph should look like, won't spend a whole lot of time trying to make it look perfect. Something like that. And that's our answer. Okay, let's look at the next one. Y is equal to dash square root dash x dash 3, I think is one I usually use. On your calculator. This very bottom row here, you have a negative. Now on the side here, you have a minus. So you have two dashes. Now I'm going to give you the general guideline for this on any calculator. Though we may find on this one that they don't apply. Some calculators, doesn't matter which dash you put in, it works. In general, though, if your dash is the very beginning of whatever, it's a negative. So this dash here is the very beginning of my problem, so this would be a negative, the one with the parentheses on it. This dash is the very beginning of my square root, so this would be a negative. It's the one with parentheses around it. If your dash is between two items, like between the x and the 3, then this will be a minus. Now you might be saying, well, this dash here is between the square root and the x. Yeah, it is, but it goes against our first guideline, that if it's the first dash and whatever, it's a negative. And other than that, we enter in as we see it. So let's take a look at that. There. So I go diamond and then W, go back to Y equals. I press my up arrow to go to Y1, press my clear. I put in a negative, which is the bottom row here, and now I want square root. A square root's above your multiplication, so I do second and then my multiplication to get square root, and it puts the beginning parentheses on there for me, and then I'll put negative x and then a minus 3, closing parentheses, enter. Okay, now let's graph it. So I do diamond R, and that'll give us our graph. 1, 2, 3. Looks like something like that. Actually, should be a little bit more curved. Try that again. Okay, there we go. Something like that. Oops. I need to bring that one up. Not yet. Okay, let's take a look at this. Now I'm going to go back to my y equals. So I'll do diamond and then the y equals. And press enter. Or maybe escape. Do an up arrow. And I meant to go into this one. So let me do an enter on that. Now you see it throws it down here in edit mode and everything's highlighted. If I do my right arrow key, then my cursor's here. If I do my left arrow key, okay, now see it's just to the right of the negative. So if I do a backspace, then I can wipe that out. Or if I do backspace one more time, I'm right here. Let me put a minus in there instead. I thought I might override it, but it didn't. So anyway, I'll do a right arrow key, and then I will do a backspace. Get rid of that. Okay. Now let me press enter. Gives me a syntax error. And you should always choose the go-to. So if I do enter on a go-to, actually let me come over here and show it a little bit better. Okay, do enter on that, and then I'll do an enter on go-to. Then it puts it where my problem area is. See how it puts a cursor after that? So then I can do a backspace and put in my negative. And then if I graph it, so if I do diamond, actually, if I just do an enter, it takes it. And then if I do diamond R, it gives me my graph. Okay, well he's saying, well, if it gives you the wrong dash, what's the big deal? It'll work either way. It just tells you there's an error, you just change it to the other dash. Well, let me go back to y equals. So do diamond W. Come up here and press enter. Do my right arrow key, left arrow, till it's just the right of that minus. Now if I do a backspace and put a negative in there and press enter. Strange, it took it, didn't it? No errors at all. Well, let's do diamond R. No syntax errors at all, just gives us the wrong graph. Now that's frustrating. Comes test time, you think you typed in everything perfect, and just because you put the wrong dash, it gives you, the wrong answer. You miss the problem completely. Well, let's go back to diamond y equals. Come up here, press enter, and look what it did. I just had a negative there, and it puts a times there. It assumes you're multiplying those together if you put the wrong dash in that case. So let me wipe those out. And I'm going to put in the minus, which what it should be, is this between the x and the 3, and then press enter. And now if I go back to my graph, diamond R, you see we get the right graph. So it's important on TI-92, not all models of calculators, but it's important on this model of calculator that you know what these dashes represent. So again, if the dash is a first and whatever, it's a negative. If it's a between two items, it's a minus. Okay, let's look at our last one. We've got y is equal to x to the power of x squared, and I don't remember, so let me go look. X squared minus 3x plus square root of x. So minus 3x plus square root of x. Remember I said earlier that if you got more than a single number or a single variable in your exponent, you have to put parentheses around the exponent. So as we type this in, we have to put parentheses around the exponent like that. Other than that, we pretty well type it in as we see it. Okay, so go back to my y equals. I'll do diamond W, up arrow to y1, press clear. Okay, then we'll do our x key, and I want to do the caret for the exponent, and then I want to put a beginning parentheses for the exponent, and then the x squared. So I'll do my x key, caret 2 minus 3x plus the square root. The square root is above your multiplication, so I'm going to do my second, the multiplication symbol. I'll put in my x key. Now I'm going to put a closing parentheses for the square root. I'll put a closing parentheses for the exponent, and I'll press enter. And then you see what it puts across the top there. Now if I do a graph, so do diamond R. Interesting enough, this is kind of a bizarre graph. It's worked on every model I've looked at so far with the Texas Instruments. I haven't got to the other ones I have, but we'll see. But that would be our answer. And actually, it looks a little bit even better than what you see on a TI-92, TI-93 model calculator. Okay, let's say, and again, while we're learning basic building blocks so you can graph more complex ones in college algebra. Let's say you're the best point plotter there was in the previous class. You know, everybody else was happy with 3 points. You had to have like 7, 8, 9. Took great pride in it. You had special paper. And you prefer to do it by hand. You know, well, we know what that is. That's the parabola, right? That's that U-shaped graph. Or is it? Maybe what that graph is the heart shape. You just didn't plot enough points to see that. Maybe what it is, it comes up, goes through those points, comes back down over here. Maybe it comes up and goes through these points, comes back down over here. Maybe it comes back down here at x equals 500. You just needed 500 more points in your t-chart, and you would have saw it come back down. Plotting points is the worst way in the world to graph something, unless you already know what it looks like. Now, if you know what it looks like, I think what I'm saying, then why are you graphing it? Now, the graphing calculator has its flaws too, because you're mainly just looking at the standard viewing window from -10 to 10. Now, you'll use leading coefficient test to maybe tell there's more to the graph, but to get the true picture of the graph, you have to take Calc 1 or Business Calc. There's a whole chapter covering different techniques to figure out how can you tell what it really looks like. Now, plotting points is horrible. The graphing calculator is a step above that. It's still not perfect though. And that's graphing on a TI-92 calculator. And again, to exit out of graph mode, you do Diamond Q to get back to your home.